Well, this past week began the civil trial in Virginia. That's of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. I'm calling it the trial of the Pirates of Hollywood. Well, we're going to talk about that and a whole lot more right here on this episode of Charlie Crimebuster, what some people are calling the fastest minutes in podcasting. Well, hello and welcome. Of course, Johnny Depp is the best known for his character of Jack Sparrow in the Pirates of the Caribbean. Well, that was before this trial. But the information that has come from the courtroom this past week, well, it has all the characteristics of a pirate movie. From taking a dump on the bed, which is called Poopgate, to slicing a finger off, and more. Well, we're covering that on today's podcast. But first, let me give a welcome to all of our new listeners to today's podcast. We have new listeners each and every week, and we appreciate them. We also appreciate our own great family of Charlie fans. You are the reason we bring these stories, and you are appreciated. I want to invite you to share with me your comments, ideas, opinions, and we welcome them, even if you are not in agreement with our positions on such things on the podcast. Yep, you can reach me by emailing me at charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's Charlie Crimebuster, CRIMEBUSTER @gmail.com. Hey, also, please get caught up with any of the past podcasts. You can do that, again, by going to charliecrimebuster.com. There you'll find past podcasts and some good material there, including safe apps that you can put on your phone to protect you and your family. Also, please check out our peacemakernetwork.com project. You can reach it straight from our charliecrimebuster.com site, or if you prefer, you can go to peacemakernetwork.com website. You see, anyone that reaches out to us this week, well, you're going to receive a special appreciation gift. Now, all those contacts that we just mentioned, how to reach us, all that good stuff, and how to get to our websites, we're going to list them on our show notes, so they'll be right there for you. And please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you can receive them weekly. You can do that on your podcast platform. Also, let me encourage you, if you get an opportunity, give us a review. It'd be helpful for us. Well, now to our focus story. Well, our famous pirates, both movie stars. Well, they started their courtship, after meeting on a movie set. That was while they were filming what is called the Rum Diary. They did that a few years earlier. You see, they started dating there in 2012, and they ended up tying the knot in 2015. Well, unfortunately, that marriage knot began to unravel. Just 15 minutes, it might seem like 15 minutes in Hollywood, but 15 months later, it was officially over. You see, Amber Heard, she began the process of untying the knot. She did that by filing for a divorce and brought along a restraining order with it. She did that by appearing in court there in Los Angeles. She appeared there with a bruised cheek. You see, her claims was that Johnny Depp, that was her husband, who was 23 years older than her, that he had violently attacked her, even thrown a mobile phone at her face with quote-unquote extreme force. She also claimed excessive emotional, verbal, and physical abuse, and they used such words in the filing as angry, hostile, humiliating, and threatening assaults. Now, these charges, of course, were denied by the soon-to-be ex-husband, Johnny Depp. But as they say in Hollywood, and Hollywood divorces anyhow, money can do wonders. And just hours before a civil trial over that order was begun, she and the Pirates of Caribbean star, they published a joint statement indicating that dispute was over. Hey, by the way, please make a mental footnote to remember the part about that joint statement. You'll see where that comes in later. Well, that settlement, it included $7 million as part of a divorce statement. Heard is reported to have pledged the settlement money to the ACLU. Well, now it looked like our pirates couple had walked separately away into the Hollywood sunset like so many others. But then, in 2018, the pirate of the Caribbean star, well, he thought that his ship of success was under attack. Thus, the basis of this lawsuit. We're going to tell you about that in just a minute, but right now it's time for what we call our Courageous Citizen of the Week story. And this one includes a sheriff. A sheriff here in Florida, in Franklin County. The sheriff's name is A.J. Smith, and he went through something he said he would not wish on his worst enemy. You see, he arrested his daughter. On Monday, April the 18th, deputies, they conducted a controlled buy. That involved Smith's 38-year-old daughter, the sheriff's daughter, who was accused of trafficking drugs. That's what Smith told the newspaper. He went on to say, when you work in law enforcement, you do not take things personally. That's what he wrote on Facebook 2 days after his daughter's arrest. He said there will be many challenging situations you will face, and you must rise above those. You see, Smith, he has a reputation of cracking down on drug trafficking, particularly meth trafficking in Franklin County. And the sheriff even wields the slogan, quote, "We don't meth around." You see, the last thing you want to see, he goes on to say, is your child in an orange jumpsuit with handcuffs on. Smith's daughter, she faces charges of trafficking meth, of 14 grams of over, drug equipment, possession or use, cocaine possession, according to the Sheriff's Department arrest log. Smith goes on to say, quote, "It's heartbreaking. The last person you ever want to arrest is one of your family members, especially your child. I mean, like you can't even put it into words. I don't think it's anything you would wish on your worst enemy to do something like this." This is what Smith told WMBB. Smith also said that he would give his daughter the same tough love he advocates for other families affected by meth. You know, my friend, I can only imagine how hard this was for Sheriff Smith, this Florida sheriff. You see, many of the good old boys in the good old boy days, they may have tried to protect the sheriff's daughter, sweep that under a rug. But a courageous sheriff practices tough love on his own daughter, and this sheriff becomes what we call our Courageous Citizen of the Week. Now back to our focus story. In December 2018, Amber Heard wrote what is called an opinion piece in the Washington Post. In this article, she describes her own personal experience as, quote, "a public figure representing domestic abuse," unquote. Now, she did not mention our pirate's name or any other one in this article. But she went on to say in the article, quote, "I felt the full force of our culture's wrath on women who speak out." She wrote, "I had a rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse," end of quote. Now, those statements, according to Depp, amounts to defamation. He states that it derailed his career, damaged his reputation. His lawyer writes in the complaint that her allegations are part of an elaborate hoax to generate positive publicity for Miss Heard and advance her career. Then, after more of a year of lawyers fighting back and forth, Miss Heard, she sends her own volley over the pirate's legal ship by alleging that the pirate of Caribbean, he defamed her when his former lawyer released statements saying that the allegations of abuse were a hoax. Now, interesting enough, he's suing her for $50 million. She's countersuing for $100 million. So this case is not being heard like the other one I'll tell you about later on by a judge, but it's being heard by a 7-person jury in Fairfax County, Virginia Circuit Court. And during this past week, lawyers, they've questioned witnesses about the events that have certainly met the standards of a modern-day pirate story, complete with a whirlwind romance that turned into mutiny, fueled with the loss of, a whole bunch, actually, not lost of, but a whole host of modern-day rum. That modern-day rum includes cocaine, ecstasy, and a multitude of alcohol and drugs. And as in most such cases, well, both sides are telling a story that differs from the other. Now perhaps you were like me, wondering if these stars of our modern-day pirate story are from Hollywood. Well, why? Why is the case being heard, and of all places, in the Commonwealth of Virginia? Well, there are really at least two reasons why this case is being heard in Virginia. First, the trial's taking place in Fairfax, because that's where the online edition of the Post, that is where it is published by servers in the county, which allowed Mr. Depp to sue her in that area. Now, the Associated Press, they also stated that Miss Heard's attorney, well, her attorneys tried to get that trial moved back to California. But Mr. Depp's attorneys, well, they said, no way, nope, no way, not going to do it. You see, and one of Depp's lawyers, he said they decided to sue in Virginia because of Virginia's anti-SLAPP legislation, which is not as wide-ranging as in California. Now, what does that mean? Anti-SLAPP legislation? What in the world does that mean? Well, SLAPP, my friend, it stands for these words: Strategic Lawsuits Against Public Participation. You see, these anti-SLAPP laws, well, they were intended to keep people from using the courts to silence what some people say is their own First Amendment rights to speak out. Thus, the same type of speaking that Miss Heard did in her article. In other words, my friend, simply this: the laws in Virginia are not as strong as the ones in California protecting that type of speech. This was simply a strategic legal reason for moving this trial to Virginia. So, my friend, we are in Virginia for the trial, which, by the way, has certainly seen more pirates on its coast than California ever saw on their coast. Hey, by the way, for a post note, you can smile now about that statement. But speaking of side notes, did you know that this isn't the first time that these two have been in court over the same type of thing? You see, my friend, in another land far, far away from Virginia, excuse me, I'm having to fight getting into my pirate brogue here, but back in 2018, well, Depp, he sued the News Group newspapers. That's publishers of a British newspaper called The Sun. He sued that newspaper for libel over an article that referred to him as, quote, a wife beater, unquote. There, my friend, in London, the 3-week trial, well, it took on the looks of a heavyweight wrestling match, with each side coming out fighting the other. And while the lawsuit was against the paper itself, well, of course, Amber Heard and Johnny Depp's, that marital conflict, well, my friend, it was in center ring. Now, what is surprising about this case, which, by the way, Depp lost, the one in London, is that it was actually easier for Depp to succeed there than here in the United States. You see, in London, the defamed person, that is Depp, he has to prove what was said about him isn't true. In the U.S. now, it's the opposite. The alleged slander has to prove what they said is true. Yet, in that case in London, he lost. You see, the British judge there, he ruled that the great majority of the Heard accusations of abuse, well, he ruled it could be proven to a legal standard, meaning simply this, that the abuse was more likely than not to have occurred. Well, Depp, his lawyers appealed that, but that appeal was denied. Now remember, we're now in civil court in Virginia. And for civil court, you're not looking for something that has to be proved beyond a reasonable doubt. But now we're looking at a preponderance of evidence, much like the court in London ruled. Now, in a moment, we're going to get into what really took place on the witness stand in this last week of the Pirates of Hollywood trial. There were pretty amazing things said. And I'm also going to share with you, what I believe I found to be the smoking gun, which will prove the case in favor of one of the pirates. I'm going to share with you that truth in just a moment or so. But right now, it is time for what we call our crazy crook story. And our crazy crook story, it comes again from Florida. This from Longwood, Florida. You see, nearly 2 months after Seminole County first responders, well, they assisted a whole bunch of people who reported feeling weird, sick, and stoned, now get this, at a Longwood wedding party in February. Well, deputies just this week, get this, they arrested the bride and the caterer for the event. You see, Dania Glennie, 42, and Josine Bryant, 31, well, they were all accused of tampering with food that third-party guests, well, they claimed was laced with marijuana. And it happened on the night of February the 19th. That's when deputies responded to 400 Woodbridge Road, there to assist the Seminole County Fire Department with a medical call. It was according to an incident report from a crowd of 30 to 40 people at the venue. Well, several of those people, they complained of stomach pains, vomiting. One man in his 40s, well, he requested to be transported to South Seminole Hospital because, quote, he was feeling weird, stated he felt like he had drugs inside him. Well, medical transport was also requested by a woman who told deputies that she suspected that her food was laced with possible cannabis. She vowed to prosecute. At least 3 others also wished to press charges. And 2 people, they were noted as being too incoherent to even give a written statement. Well, deputies said they made contact with Glennie and asked her if she had consented or requested any of the food to contain marijuana products. She denied that. They were attempting, of course, to locate the manager of the catering service later. That was identified as Bryant. That's with a company called Jocelyn's Southern Kitchen. Deputies said that all the catering staff, well, they either left or were starting to drive off. Then, the deputies, well, they took multiple food items and pieces of glassware. They collected them for evidence and testing, including the chocolate-covered strawberries, wine glasses, and pudding shots, cookies, brownies, even a handful of lasagna. That was according to the report. And according to the arrest affidavit, well, the lasagna, that's right, the lasagna and a piece of bread collected at the scene, well, it tested positive for THC. Well, Glennie and Bryant, they were arrested Monday at the Seminole County Jail. Both faced charges of tampering, negligence, delivery of marijuana. So, my friend, I guess I would say, if you think it's cute to lace your wedding party's food with drugs, well, you just might want to think again, or you might just end up spending your honeymoon in the glamour slammer. And that, my friend, is our crazy crook story of the week. Crazy people lace their wedding food with marijuana. Well, so now back to our main focus of the story. You see, in the opening statements, well, Heard's lawyer, Benjamin Rottenborn, well, he announced to the jury that in the course of the trial, you're going to see who the real Johnny Depp is. The one who's hiding behind the fame. One who's hiding behind the pirate costumes. He went on to say that because Johnny Depp brought this case, well, all of this is going to come out. He says evidence will show that Depp physically and sexually assaulted Heard on multiple occasions. However, he also said that the basics of libel law will show you that Heard was exercising her First Amendment rights as an advocate. That was when she wrote the article, which focused largely on the topic of domestic violence and did not even mention Johnny Depp's name. But then, Depp's lawyer, Benjamin Chu, well, he did acknowledge that Depp's name never appeared in the piece, but he went on to say it did not have to. He said, hey, everyone in Hollywood knew exactly what she was talking about and who she was talking about. He called it an example of defamation by implication. He says that when she showed up at the courthouse back on May the 27th of that year with a bruise on her face, that was photographed, of course, by the paparazzi. He says that evidence will show that Heard gave herself the injury to ruin Depp's reputation. And as the trial began, well, several witnesses had been called to the stand for the Depp team. All of them, of course, most all of them were in Depp's court. Of course, they're supporting him, including his sister and members of his security team, and a whole lot of he said and she said. But now, my friend, let me point out with these witnesses, particularly security, the thing to remember about private security, I know something about that, is that private security for celebrities, well, that word private, you see, such security prides itself on the word private. You see, two things are sure about this type of security. Number one, they see all. They see it all. They see subjects they protect, warts and all. So that's the first thing. They really see what's really happening. But number two is this. Remember this. They're intensely loyal. You see, my friend, their livelihood depends on them being intensely loyal. They're paid quite well, by the way. So basically, this type of witness that we see are testifying, they pretty much are along the lines of the person they support. Again, a lot of he said and she said. But then, just this past week, well, Johnny Depp, the pirate himself, takes the stand. He starts off and he talks about his childhood, how he was abused by his mother. Hang on to that one now. Because the implication is that he married someone just like his mother who abused him. And he took that abuse. Well, he also turns around and he makes his testimony quite interesting. After all, he makes a living performing. He mentions that he got into acting actually by accident. You see, while he was looking at work between bands, his music gigs, that was his first love, making music with a band. Well, there he stumbled upon an acting opportunity with the help of Nicolas Cage, his roommate. He then mentions how security accelerated after he became famous, why he had so much security. And then he talks about getting into the relationship of Amber, that at first was love bliss, only to become an angry blast. He also mentions his own relationship with drugs and how he became addicted to them and how his own going battle was going with that monkey on his back. And he denies that he ever struck Amber or any other woman. He denies the charges of being an abuser, and in fact, he points to Amber as the abuser. And oh, my friend, wow, some really wild things came out, including alleging that Amber took a dump on the bed, that's Poopgate, to show him contempt, that she threw a liquor bottle that burst and cut off part of his finger. Both of those, by the way, was denied by Heard. You see, this was all told in a way that had several people feeling real sorrow for the sparrow in their life. That is until, well, cross-examination begins with Johnny Depp. And there, my friend, texts, videos, recordings that were all saying quite a different story. Texts that referred to burning up Amber in a car, drowning her, calling her all kinds of names, which was going a far cry from the Southern gentleman that Depp claimed to be in his own defense. Photos and recordings of our star in a highly, disgusting, intoxicated state, whereby he was holding a knife, destroying property. All of this and much more, well, again, it takes him a far cry from being that Southern gentleman. And in spite of what Depp now says about his finger, but when he reported there to the hospital for help, he said that he himself was responsible for the wound. And on the stand, he said that he told them that he shut it in an accordion door. Another time, it was reported to the authorities that he accidentally cut it off. And more than once, on recordings, he said that he chopped his finger off, including one to a doctor and another to Amber herself. He told her, you remember that day when I chopped my finger off? See, he said that on the recording. Now he says that he said that only to protect Amber, but if so, why would he say that he chopped off his finger to Amber? If indeed Amber had done it. Things that make you wonder. And my friend, the cross-examination is not over yet for Johnny Depp. There's more to start on Monday, along with more witnesses for the Depp team. Then all of that will be followed by Heard's and her presentation of her case. Oh, my friend, much more action, I can assure you. A counselor there described the relationship between the two of being that of mutual abuse. Well, is it or isn't it? That appears to be where the case is turning to. However, my friend, with all the soap opera being played, it's easy to get away from what this case is all about. While domestic violence is really a major part of the case, the real issue is, was Johnny Depp defamed? Or was he the own source of his own self-destruction? It is important to know what has to be proved for Depp to win his case. According to Virginia law, he must, quote, show publication of an actionable statement with the requisite intent. Actionable statement must be proven, get this, false and inflammatory. Well, my friend, in my opinion, based on what I heard this week from texts and recordings of Johnny himself, it's going to be quite difficult for him to prove that her statement is false. And to the intention of damage, it appears to me the article was to point out how difficult it is for people to speak out about being abused in a domestic relationship. That seemed to be the center of the article, not trying to damage Johnny Depp. But my friend, that trial is yet early, and there's more to come. And there is what I call a smoking gun in the case. It goes all the way back to a statement that Johnny Depp signed. Back when they were settling their difference there, he signed a statement that said, quote, our relationship was intensely passionate and at times volatile, but always bound by love. And then get this, these are the words at the smoking gun that he signed. He said, neither party has made false accusations for financial gain. My friend, she had just issued a statement to the court for the restraining order. She stated she was abused physically, and now Johnny Depp signs a statement saying that she did not make false statements. That, my friend, could become the smoking gun of this entire trial. Now, keep in mind that unlike London, where the trial was decided by a judge, this one, well, it's going to be decided by a 7-member jury, mostly males. So as in any jury trial, anything can happen. But if they go by law, the elements will be hard for Depp to prove that she made a false statement. But we will see. We will see. So in our Charlie Chat today, 2 things stand out that might be overlooked in this soap opera that's being played out in court. One is alcohol and drug abuse. That's proved without a shadow of a doubt in this case. You can really see that it is not alcohol and drugs that are being abused, but it's the use of alcohol and drugs that's abusing 2 people, both Depp and Heard. Now, for those who have lived with addicted people, well, there's already abuse right there. The mood swings, the frustrations, the frantic actions of the person who is addicted. Well, it brings nothing but tremendous pain to the loved ones who are in the path of an addicted person. The addiction in and of itself to that person is harmful. It even can be fatal. Well, thankfully, there's help for both the addicted and the addicted family. Helplines will be listed in our show notes. Next, it is the evident role of domestic violence. My fear is, instead of the spotlight being shined on the monster of domestic violence, well, the spotlight will probably end up being shined. More people will think about Poopgate and who said what than the real issue of domestic violence. We recently saw the harm of domestic violence and pointed it out clearly in our podcast regarding Gabby Petito. If you missed those, go to charliecrimebuster.com to get caught up. We're also going to include contacts for domestic violence help in our show notes. So our lessons today on the Charlie Crimebuster chat time is simple. If you are addicted, or you're a family member of addiction, do not try to fight this alone. Get help. If you're a victim of domestic violence, do not try to fight that alone. Get help. Both addiction and domestic violence are much bigger and stronger than you are, and you need the help. Again, in our show notes, we'll have those helplines for you. So until this time next week, when we continue our podcast on the Pirates of Hollywood, this is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you, be safe, be alert, for the life you save may be your very own.